All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being patient as more people joined, and we expect a few more to join later on today. This is Real Estate 2050. My name is Q Elamine. For those who do not know me, I've been in the real estate profession for a little over 15 years now, both educationally and through experience. So I'm a graduate of the ACRES program. I also have a master's in geography, and have done everything from flipping to we used to call it middlemanning. Now they call it wholesaling, all the way to multifamily development. And as you have to keep learning, keep finding new niches. Right now, studying a lot of modular and industrial redevelopment. So again, this is a six-part series, and in that six-part series, we really just set out to uh, assist as much as we could in getting people into the real estate field, especially in the development space. I know that's a hot market and topic. So you just want to do what we can because I'm approached pretty much every couple of days on somebody who's asking some kind of question, wants to go over things. So we just thought it would be more efficient to do it all collectively. And just want to touch on one thing before we get started is that uh, make sure that we are not just focused on one portion. I know the developer is always what's out there in the forefront, but there's a lot of people who make the development work. And so, if you do want to be a developer and take on the risk and the work that comes with that, perfectly fine, not pushing anybody away from doing that. But also remember, if you are, you have to build a team around you to be able to support in those projects and processes. Uh, you just never know until you get into it how many people it really takes to put these deals together. And you're talking about several hundreds. It's including the construction companies and their contractors and subcontractors. So just keep that in mind that, oftentimes we want to be the person out in front, whether that's the rapper or the basketball player, but it's, hundreds of people behind those people that are actually making the person that's out in front successful and make things go. So in addition, and everyone's that's on this call, if you haven't already, we'll continue to build, we'll continue to add you to BuildGenius. And it's a software platform that we have developed and are continuously developing to just streamline a lot of these processes. I'm and our team uses it on a daily basis. This morning we were assigning tasks, making sure that we are keeping everybody accountable for what is needed. Yesterday, we were at the job site. We had paid some guys out in cash, and in paying them out in cash, of course, we had to keep a log of it if we want to claim it later on. We had to upload that to Build Genius so that once closing comes, we can get those reimbursements. But today, we're here for uh, building your Proforma, and in a little while, we'll have Sierra Payne talk about her project. But we're going to kind of get right into the Proformas. We can go over a couple that we currently use, and then also we'll build one from scratch because that has been tremendously helpful in my real estate journey. So before we go on from there, any questions? So as I'm pulling up the Proforma, does anybody want me to go through? a project that they're working on. All right, hearing none. Uh, Let me share the next screen. So the first one, Proforma, we're going to go through. This is for a project and Walker Dunlop modified and put this project together. Uh, and this is for a 20 unit building in South Milwaukee. So multifamily development. And the number one item that you're going to look for in your performa, and it kind of summarizes uh, what you have is your sources and uses. So in your sources and uses, it will tell you where you're getting the money from and what you're spending the money on. And these have to equal out. So on this project, it's approximately a $4.1 million project. And as you can see, the sources that are coming in are equaling the uses of the project. And in that, of course, you're going to have your loans. We have the WIDA vacancy to vitality loan in there. Then also some deferred developer fee. So that's a fee that you were supposed to get paid that you're actually putting to get paid later. And oftentimes that actually doesn't ever get paid, but that's what you're setting as a source. And then uh, your developer equity. So developer equity is actual cash that you're bringing to the table, whether that's yours or through a partner, but it's money that's brought to the table. And then for your uses, your acquisition, zoom in a little bit. Acquisition is what you're buying the property for. Your hard costs are items that are going like specifically towards the building, your drywall, contingencies, flooring, roofing, etc. And then you're going to want a contingency on top of that. So your contingency is usually if you're doing a rehab of existing building, you want from 10 to 15%. And then if you're doing new construction, it's usually about 5% of what the hard costs are. The reason you have to have that in there is for the unknowns. You may find additional soil remediation that needs to be done. There may be additional um, costs in terms of how long the project runs. All of those are placed into the contingency.
Question, Q. Got a question.
Yep.
What is so? What is a benchmark for contingency? Is it always 5%? Could it be 10%? What would be a a good gauge for contingency when you're constructing your performance?
So when you're initially starting, meaning if you're doing your first draft, I would put it as high as 20%. And then as you get better bids, as the construction is getting closer, you can lower it. Usually, like WIDA for any adaptive reuse. So if you're taking an existing building and converting it into another use, that's always at least a 10%. Uh, and but if it's new construction, it's usually about 5% is what you have. Because with new construction, it's a lot less unknowns because you're not using the existing building. One thing, and this is something I'm just learning, so I always like to try to pass it on as soon as I learn it. In your construction contract with your general contractor, ensure that if that contingency isn't being used, who gets that money? Because it can be that the construction company will get that money. It could be that you will get all of it. It could be that you all will split it.
Would that be something you talk about you know, with the builder, or how would you negotiate that?
Yep. So it's usually, well, it'll always be in the, if you're doing a larger development and have an AIA contract, it's going to be in your AIA contract. And so it's going to be because, so usually we have what's called a GMP. So it's a guaranteed, I think, maximum price. And in there, it's saying that this is how much the project going to cost. And they're guaranteeing it's not going to go over that. And that's a little fuzzy because if it does, it does. But they are guaranteeing at least that cost and that the timeline in completing that. And so it's really important to, you know, read your contracts, have a lawyer read your contracts, have AI read your contracts, and then kind of meet in the middle on what you feel comfortable with the risk profile. And then in addition, before you sign your construction contract, make sure that your lender has reviewed it as well, because they'll have comments and they'll have protections that they want to see in there. And so you don't want to sign and get into something that your lender is not going to finance. So in addition to those uses, of course, you have your architectural engineering fees, construction period interest. So remember, as you're going through construction, you have to pay interest on that money that you borrow. And that can really eat up a lot of your budget. You know, this one is about 75,000. You know, other ones we've had several millions of dollars in just interest for the construction period. You got to put some money to the side for insurance. If you are in the real estate industry right now, you know that insurance is a high cost. Plus your taxes, so property taxes, because those will have to get paid while you're holding the property and during construction. So you have to put those to the side. Again, your developer fee is how much you are going to get paid as a developer. On here is 200,000, and we're deferring 50,000. We have to bring 158,000. So as you can tell, I know all of you are probably really good at math. That's probably negative $8,463. So, you know, it's you make the deals work, but sometimes it's really tight margins on the deals. And then you have your other costs, and that may be engineering, or I'm sorry, consulting fees for tax credit consultants. It may be your broker who connected you with the project. Then you have to market the project, so you got to build a website. You're gonna have to put it on like apartments.com, flyer the neighborhood, those types of things. And so you need to put some money in there for there. And then all of your fees for people lending you money is also in there. So this is what most people, when they're financing deals, this is like the thing they're going to look at to make sure this evens out, and how's the money coming in, how's the money being spent. So make sure when you first go to like this portion is right, because this is how it's going to summarize like your entire deal.
How do um
Go ahead.
for Proforma, who would make that specific chart? Would it be a estimator or would somebody just be assigned to make it? And how do we know how accurate it is, even though it's just guessing for the future?
You really want to be the person that drives it. So usually I do the first performers for ours. Now Marcus Morgan, he's starting to do them as well for us. But you know, you want, as the developer, you want to make sure you know all of the levers that are put, and then you're getting numbers from other people. So the hard costs you're going to get from the construction company, the financing charge, your lender's going to tell you we want a 1% fee on the loan amount. So you're gonna get that and put it into one document, and then usually once you have it and you understand it and you are agreeable for it, then you have like the second stage or a third party that uh, that reviews it, and they'll do another copy. So I'll just while we're while we're on that subject, we'll have like Baker Tilly. So this is another project. This is the Osiris campus. So Baker Tilly, like we come up with the numbers and then they put it into their format, and theirs is more in depth than ours typically is. And we'll go to sources and uses in this one. So similar source and uses is that this one is a lot more broken down in depth for this project. And again, when you look at it, you have your 501(c)(3) bonds, which are the permanent debt. This one has Milwaukee County funding in it. Again, it's a we've revised this one, but this one had a gap. So we were deferring $4.1 million in fees. So that means we weren't getting paid. And then we also had a gap. So that was additional 600,000 that needed to be brought to the table at this point in the performance. And so you have to know again which levers to pull to be able to close those gaps, because they're not going to figure it out for you. They're just going to produce what you report to them. So you have to you're going to get it from a number of different sources, but it's your kind of responsibility as a developer to make the deal work and make the numbers work. So say for instance, and we'll just throw it out to the group. In this in this one, how would you all what's some ways that you could close the gap? We got $600,000 gap in this one. Anybody?
Philanthropic.
All right, that's one way. Who said that? Who
James.
James? Okay, yep. You can, yep. So that's asking for, philanthropy to come in and fill the gap. Uh Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Glenn How you can seek out equity investors.
That's a good one. Yep, equity investors.
Also, gap funding like mezzanine loans, something like that.
Yep. Yep. That's another way. What's the way that the general contractor is going to hate?
Renegotiating.
Exactly. Saying, hey, we need you to cut some of your general conditions or your fees. So on this one, you can see on here the general requirements, overhead and profit. So altogether, this is what 870, that's 1.6, it's like 2 point, what was it, 2.3 million or something like that, so somewhere around there, and fees that the general contractor is making. And again, as a developer in this scenario, you're not making any money. You defer 100% of your fees, 100%. And the general contractor is making about 2.3. So, and again, then you're still paying out 20 million and the electrician is gonna make money. Everybody's gonna make money, and the developer is the last on the totem pole because they're taking the most risk in this scenario. So again, that's why I said keep that in mind as you're developing uh, and as you're putting your performance together is what line items can I be a part of that's in addition to the developer fee. So that's why you see a lot of established developers. They may have a brokerage company, so they'll get paid a brokerage fee. They may have a loan packaging fee. They'll have a on site architect. They'll have a general contractor, and so that allows them to make sure that they're making money on these deals before they're over. And so on this deal, WIDA has their fees. I think they were 160 something thousand. The architect is at 1.2 million for their fee. So it's all of these line items in the performer, and you want to make sure you have them in there as well. And just as a general rule, when you're doing these performers, uh, for a light tech deal, you got your hard costs, your soft costs at about 30% of what your hard costs are. So it's like a general rule to know if it's in line or not in line. But we'll go through do that in depth a little later.
Excuse me, Q.
Yes.
You said that Baker Tilly put this performer together. What role were they performing, or were they the lender, or were they a consultant? What were they doing for you?
So a third party consultant.
Okay.
Uh, when you're doing when you're doing especially light tech deals in Wisconsin, if you get Baker Tilly to do it, people just feel that it's more accurate and because they just have a trusted name and they've been doing it for so long, they see a lot of deals. So people really trust their judgment in this process. And they do know a lot more of the nuances that you won't or you don't necessarily know because they just see so many projects. And so they'll say, okay, we need to adjust this, or WIDA is looking for this. That's really hard to just gauge independently. When I had more time, I could read over the QAP 30 times and really go through it and take the time. But when you're working on multiple deals and trying to run a business as well, it's easier just to lean upon their expertise. And they do charge. So, it's not a cheap or free service. But if the deals go as planned, it is worth it. So we'll stay on the Baker Tilly. No, I'll go back to the Walker Dunlop because it's a little easier to digest. So this is just summary. So we'll just go back as we building this out. Uh, I think one thing that I'm learning now is uh, this senior loan metrics where it says this portion, and because when you're not doing tax credit deals and you're doing, market rate deals, these are what people really uh, lean on. And so I say they're all important, but the DSCR, so debt service coverage ratio, so that's making sure that you have enough funding and cash flow to cover your debt. So you really want to make sure that's at least at a 1.15. But the more you can drive it up, the better. But at least at a 1.15. This one has a 1.2. So it's saying it's about a 20% cushion in the amount of debt that's absorbed compared to the cash flow that is. So you have like a 20% kind of contingency or profit margin in there. Cap rate is extremely important when you're reselling your project because that's a measure of risk for the person that's purchasing the property. And so you're going to have higher cap rates in less desirable areas and lower cap rates in more desirable areas. So how that relates is $100,000 in cash flow on in the inner city is in people's minds not worth the same 100,000 cash flow if it's in downtown Milwaukee. And so because it's in this scenario, it's more risky for that 100,000 to be lowered from vacancy, be lowered from any number of other items, higher expenses than in a more stabilized market. And again, that can drive your value. If you had a 4% versus 8%, that can double your value. So the same amount of money, but different areas can drive the value of it. And we'll go to the analysis, and we'll probably just start building one out because it'll be a little easier to understand. But what this analysis is doing is taking your all the rent that you're getting projected into the property. Is going to take a vacancy. A vacancy is how much you expect it to be, without someone renting it. For market rate deals, you're looking at 5%. If you're doing tax credit deals, you're looking at 7%. If you're looking at commercial, you may want to do 20 to 50%. If it's retail, you probably want to do 50%. And so that's again another cushion or contingency that's in the project. So once you do that portion, you want to do your expenses. Again, this expense ratio, if you're doing tax credit deals, your expense ratio is probably going to be at about 40%, maybe 45, somewhere around there. If you're doing market rate, you may be at 30%. If you are charging your tenants like all of the utilities back, so you're not paying for water or anything like that, you may get down to a 25% expense ratio. If you again charging them for trash, all the different ones, and then that's going to lead you to your NOI. You probably hear a lot of people talking about NOI, but that's your net operating income. So that does not take into account debt, because when you're valuing this, people that are looking to purchase this, they may not have any debt on the property. They may say, we have a equity fund or we have excess money and we just want to buy the building free and clear, and then we'll just make our money back over the next 10 years or 5 years or whatever it may be. And so they're just looking at, after all the expenses is paid, how much money is the owner or owners profiting. And so that's where you have that. And then Chandra Ellis, she said, do you include the Baker Tilly fees in the soft costs? For the yes and no. So it is in the soft cost. For WIDA's purposes, it's taken out of the developer fee. So any development consultants for WIDA's purposes are taking out the developer's fee. For in general deals, they have their own like third-party consulting cost that is included into the line items. So, but they are, yes, in the soft cost. So anything that you pay out up front, you get back from it, and anything, any money that, anything that's due, upon construction start, then they get paid from there. And I'll pause there. Any questions? All right. We'll go to the construction budget. So in this scenario, what on the right-hand side, this came from the actual contractor. And then so this is the construction budget really broken down into individual uh, individual portions of the project. And then they took this end number, the 2,816,000 with 363, and then they just plugged it into the construction number and one line item. So you can do it either way, have it individually or just plug one number into your performer. So this makes it a little easier. So you're not having to change each line item when you want to change numbers, but it allows you to see, if we need to take off what part, where can we maybe cut some cost.
You question,
Yep.
is this a template performer that we can actually have examples of that we can utilize ourselves, or is this something that you actually use?
So both. This one is actually like copying and pasted this page from my performer, and then Walker Dunlop I'll send out three performers after this call. So it'll be like a more commercial performer, and then we'll send out a LIHTC performer as well. And then it's another one that's it's like like a more of a condo or like home sales performer.
Okay, cool. And the reason I ask is because I know, but some people learn from the having access to the template and walk through it as play with it as you're walking through it. And so, like, for the next one, that would be very helpful, as understanding because some people are not savvy with numbers and stuff. So, no, that's cool though. Thanks.
That makes sense. And then we can, let me see. I think we can put it, I don't know if we can put it in like the chat. If not, I think before it's done, we could figure out a way to get it to everybody. Maybe I can if that's helpful, I can put it, maybe do like a Google. Malik is here with me as well. So we can put it into like a Google Drive and people can download it if that's helpful.
Perfect. Perfect.
All right, 1 second. Let's do that. All right, we'll keep going through it. Let me just email this to Malik really quickly. And so in that, who's gonna give us a project to just build off of?
I could do that. Hi, I'm Antoine.
All right, Antoine, we gonna start with you. Let me 1 second. Let me just send this to Malik. And give me 30 seconds.
And one more thing, I didn't mean to interrupt. Is this recorded? So will we ever have access to this recording?
Yep, yeah, it is recorded.
Okay, thanks, bro. That's it. I'm sorry.
And all right. Anybody know? Is there any way to put it in the chat or we gotta upload it? Oh yeah, I think I can put it in the chat. All right, let's try it this way then. Unable to send. Okay, I think I could do it this way. All right, so check the chat. All right, we'll build one as much from scratch as possible, and then we'll go from there. Okay, Antoine, what type of project are you working on?
I am working on a LIHTC project, on a LIHTC apartments mixed use project.
All right, so we got okay, so we're gonna do a LIHTC. Okay, so if we do a LIHTC, we know that we're gonna have uh that's gonna be some tax credit equity. So we'll just start with like tax credit pricing. Is it state and federal or
Yes, both.
then, all right, anybody just want to throw out any numbers? James Mathu, he probably know. I saw him just close some other deal. Uh, what people are getting now for like state and federal LIHTC? All right, James, anybody got a guess right now? For the federal, I'm gonna go with 82 cent. And then for the state, I'm gonna go with like 70.
Yeah, I was gonna say 77 and 81.
All right, so we'll put another penny on it. All right, and then so the investor is gonna have like 99.99% of the deal. And that's in a LIHTC deal is structured where the investors so they can take the depreciation, they can take uh, all of the benefits basically of the deal. They technically own 99.99% of the deal, even though you as the owner, general partner makes all the decisions, gets the cash flow. They own again on paper 99.99% of the deal. So we got you got your tax credit investor here, and then we're gonna need so when you're uh qualified, the qualified rehabilitation expenditures comes with the QRE. That's how much eligible cost you have uh in the project. So like eligible costs to get tax credits from. So Antoine, how many units are you looking at?
55.
All right, so let's do units. So we got this would be tax credits. So we got 55 units at how many one bedrooms?
From my notes, we have 20. Okay, so we got 20. And then let's break this off a little more. Let's do it like this. So we'll usually have like 30% AMI, 50% AMI, 60% AMI, and say 80% AMI, and then market rate. All right, so we're just gonna go for time purposes. We do all at 60% because if you do income averaging, meaning that all the incomes average out, they all have to average to 60%. So if you're doing it fast, you can just start with 60 and then work backwards to mix them throughout the 30, 50, and 80 range. So we'll just start with all right, 20 at 60%. How many two bedrooms? 15?
15. And so that means another what's
Yeah,
it,
the
23,
15.
15 or and any four bedrooms?
No,
Oh,
not
okay.
current.
All right, so we got 50 units total. All right. Anybody know the easiest way to get how much money for 60% rents? All right, we'll show you. So I have it uh bookmarked on my computer because that's how much I use. I'm gonna put this in the chat right now too, so that everybody has it. Right now, we're just using a blank performer, just a blank sheet of a blank Excel. Because if you use blank Excel, it usually uh
for me, and Blair Williams had did this for me. He's a developer. It'll allow you to see how all of the tabs and all of the everything works out. Because when you work from something that's already put together, it's sometimes hard to see the relationships between them. So if you see this, let me just go back. 'Cause I probably did too fast. So when you're filling this out, it'll allow you to put in the project name, the minimum set asides. So you either can have 20% of your units at 50, and this is a minimum, 20% of your units at 50% AMI. So that means if you had 100 units, 20 of them would have to be at 50% county median income or lower, or you can do 40% of your units at 60% or county median income or lower. And it's a lot of nuances that come in there, but that's the baseline. And so once you enter there, you enter uh which AMIs do you want it to calculate, and then do you want to calculate? We don't have any efficiencies in this. We don't have any 4 bedrooms or 5 bedrooms, so we would delete that. And so the first portion here is the income limits. And this is extremely important when you're selling these projects to different communities. So you can say, because oftentimes when people hear affordable housing or low-income housing tax credits, they say, well, the people are not going to work, they're not going to have jobs. So you're looking at this and you're saying, if it's one person at 60% AMI, they have to make $42,000 a year. So that's roughly about $21 an hour. Yep, about $21 an hour. So it's not like these people don't have decent jobs and good jobs and still can qualify for in the affordable housing realm. So if you're looking at someone that has one child and they're in 80% uh, income range, that's $65,000 a year. So that's when you're showing what type of jobs people make in this range, and then it dispels a lot of the myths around affordable housing. And then while we're on this sheet, we really want to see now that 1 bedroom, 60% is up to $1,149. So if we go back to our chart right here that we were going off of, usually you're not going to charge the maximum amount. Plus, you're going to have utility allowances in there. But just say we can get 85%. So I would do 80 equals 85% times $1,149. So that gives us approximately $976 in rent. And then for the 2 bedroom, we're at 1378. So I would just do the same thing, but put 1378. Sorry about that. And then for the 3 bedrooms, 1593. So we now we know monthly, we're looking at, then we'll create one more for annually. So it equals 20 times here. And if I'm doing something wrong, by all means, stop me. And then we just times multiplying the monthly by 12 to get the annual. So if we add these up, all right, let's see if this makes sense or not. I think it does. All right, so if we look at this right now, how we're looking at it, just again, this is very preliminary, but these 50 units, potentially could kick off about 700,000 or $689,000 a year in potential income. So everybody on the same page where we are here?
Yes.
All right, so let's put some expenses in here. All right, we'll go. How do we want to do it? Do we want to just let's put some in here? Give me some expenses that we had to pay as as owning these properties.
Taxes and insurance, of course.
Yeah,
I imagine there's like property management fees.
yeah. Utilities, because we energy is gonna want theirs.
Hmm.
And then you gonna want something in there for like replacement. So like fixing things.
That
Um,
the that the same thing as capital expenditures replacement?
yep, like replacement reserves. Let's see. We'll go back to another performer just to easily take from another one. So we got utilities. Um, that's another good one. Um, so a turnover expense is when people move out of your property, how much does it take for you to repaint it, fix the utilities if you have to fix the washers and dryers or whatever you may have appliances in there. Uh, so it's a turnover expense, but we'll just do this for now. So taxes, what I know everybody taxes if you live in Milwaukee went up, but what do y'all think taxes are on each of these units? Let's say it's worth $200,000. Throw out a number. I'm gonna say 2,000 a unit per year. I'm gonna draw. Anybody think that's reasonable? I know y'all you all have houses, so we'll just do 2,000. 20. All right. Insurance. I would just put $1,000 a unit. Management fees for LIHTC deal, usually about 6%. This is what and I'm gonna do this a little differently. So I'm gonna put in this one what the inputs are, and then that way, if we want to change them, we'll be able to change them later on. So it's just gonna be this one, this field. So this is gonna equal the 2,000 for taxes times the 50 units. And if you put the dollar signs in front of it, then if you drag the cursor, it won't change the actual field. So it's always going to relate back to the 50. So this is going to be actually 6% of the annual revenue. So this would be equal to 6 times G6. And so what I want you all to really take note of in the management fees, it is that they get theirs off top. So it's based on revenue. So if that's why eventually you want to make sure that you're having a management, if you can, of your own properties. One, because you be able to control the experience, but then also if you're not developing, you still, have revenue and income coming in. And this is again off top. So no matter if your property at the end of the year loses, they get their funds before you get your funds as the owner. Utilities, I would say 200 a unit. Replacement reserves, maybe 300. Turnover expense, and everybody won't get, everybody won't leave at the end of time. So I would just say 150 just to throw it out there. All right, so if we add all of these up using the sum, and then just for purposes, you would just divide these numbers, so your expenses total and your revenue total, and then it's about where we are. So it's about 32%. So that's right. That's closely in line to what we originally bargained for. All right, so now we have the units there. We're going to look at cost, development cost. And Antoine, do you have any commercial in this before we go on?
Yes.
All right, let's add in. Do you know how many square feet?
Uh, so I'm doing smaller commercial units, so it's more of them, but they're smaller. So I think 9,500 square feet spaces.
Okay. And then do you know approximately how much you want to charge per unit?
But I don't know because I don't know how much square footage. Well, I mean, I don't know how much commercial spaces go.
So right now, that could be anywhere from I'll find comps, but we in the corridor we were charging a few years ago $6.50, and then charge kind of all the way up from there to $18 square foot. But we'll use $8 as like a guide.
And then so that'll give us, so to calculate how much income it'll be $8 a square foot times 500 square feet times 9 units. And then that'll give us the annual of 36,000. And then we would divide the 36,000 by 12 just to get 3,000 a month. And then we also need to put in a vacancy on top of these. So I'm gonna put in a 20% vacancy just for be conservative. Yep, maintenance and management is separate. That's correct. So we'll add that in, and then we'll put in so we got all right. So what we're gonna do now is just add in like a final total line uh into here. So if we got like like a total revenue, that'll be the commercial revenue plus the residential revenue. So now we're gonna take that number and update it by this number. It should be at 7%. All right, so we still pretty good. And then we're gonna put maintenance in here. If I spell something wrong, please forgive me. Let's just do, and I'm just literally throwing, so maintenance, you're gonna need at least somebody half-time. So that's about 20,000 a year, 25. So let's just do 250. What's gonna more than that? Okay. Yeah. All right, that works. All right, development costs. Anybody want to throw out how much do we want to estimate per unit? Throw out some numbers. Just
I have talked to a construction guy.
okay.
Um, he said somewhere between 200 and 250 per square foot.
Okay.
And he said, and on average, these would be around 1,000 square feet.
So we'll start with like 250,000 just as a start. We'll start with 225. I think that's the middle ground. All right, so we do 225 times the number of units, just 50. So that's gonna give us what I said, like 11 million or something. Yep. And then that's the residential. And then we need the same thing for the commercial. So we'll take the same 225 a square feet or square foot, excuse me. Then we'll multiply that by 500 square feet each unit, and then 9. So that's another million or so. All right. And then we'll list some of the soft costs so we can get in our brains. All right, let's go first. Architectural fees. You get any quotes from that?
I haven't yet.
All right, so it's gonna be probably 4 to 8%. So we use it of the project cost. So if we do this times, you always can negotiate it down or up, but you usually want to do it down. Um, engineering fees. That's gonna be a hard one because you got separate buildings, a lot of separate buildings. Uh, so I'm just gonna put in $100,000, and that's just literally shooting in the sky. You're gonna need to put in Baker Tilly fees. Are you doing historic tax credits?
My goal is to yes.
All right, excuse me, historic tax credit consultant. Uh, environmental. What else are we looking at? Finance fees, like 3%. Developer fee. What other fees can we think about just offhand? If not, I'll go back to other performers and just pull from. Let's see. Yep. And then your studies. So you'll have the market study. You're gonna need a appraisal. All right. So for the sake of time, uh, we'll we'll put in 50,000 for Baker Tilly, historic tax credit consultant, another 50. Environmental assessment. How many buildings do you have?
3.
Okay, 3 buildings. So we're going to estimate that you have to do 3 phase 1s. So that's like 3,000 each for that. So that's 9,000. And say, we probably got 1 phase 2. So then that's another 25,000. So we just put in 40,000 to round it out. And then the finance fees is usually going to be the percentage of the hard cost. Uh, developer fees, percentage of the hard cost. Market study, 10,000. Appraisal, yeah, I'll say about 12. Appraisal, probably 7,500 or so. And so we're now with that, we're at in soft cost roughly about 2 million. So again, if we divide that, here we're about 20% of it. So we probably got some more, not probably, we have some more to add, but this will give us a nice baseline to work off of. And then the other thing is like reserves. And usually you're going to want to do about 6 months of your expenses. So, and it could be various reserves, but we go back to here and we get our expenses and we divide it by two, then that'll give us another amount for reserves to go off of. And so if we add in this one, soft cost and the hard cost, we have about $14 million. So the other thing I'm adding is the historic tax credits as well. And that's state and federal. So what we'll do now is, because we've been pretty much going straight for an hour, let's take like a 5 minute break or yeah, 5 minute break, and then come back at 11:17. I'm gonna grab some water, and then we'll come right back at 11:17. Everybody fine with that?
Yes, that's good.
Thanks.
All right. I'll see you guys in a couple minutes.
Excuse me, Q, if you're talking, we can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Hold on, let me start the video. All right, so we back in it. So now we're looking at the qualified rehabilitation expenditures, and everything is not cannot be claimed or tax credits cannot be applied to. Usually the exceptions are items that aren't taking place during the construction process. So sometimes you finish with construction, you still have some construction interest before it turns into a full it turns into before it goes into stabilization. So those months where construction is finished, but you're just holding the property, like those things aren't eligible. If you get paid out your developer fee, some of it after like it's deferred, some of those aren't eligible costs. So you usually go through every line item and see what is, but just for the sake of time, I'm using 85% as the number. So once you have that number, the other thing we want to see, do we know if this is in a QCT, a qualified census tract? Antoine.
Yes, it is.
All right. So if it is in a qualified census tract, then you get what's called a basis boost, and you can get up to 30% more tax credits because of it. So if we do 30% times, so now our total, tax credits or total QREs are now what, 16 million or so? Yep. And so to see how much tax credit equity you're actually going to get, sorry about that. You multiply the 71 cent for the state times the QRE, and then and we're and we are again, this is just the first step of the process. Uh, but those are telling you, you know, what again potentially you can get. The other thing is that doing something wrong. Okay. Yeah, I know what I'm doing wrong. So you also have to add in, are these 4%? These are both 4% tax credits, correct?
Yes.
All right. So we have to add that in there.
Can you talk about the difference between the two?
Yep. So the 4% tax credit is uh, non-competitive, and I'm putting that in quotation marks now. It's typically that the states, you know, and all states have these, and it was typically that because it wasn't enough tax credit subsidy there to make the deals work. They usually just had extra 4%. And with the 4% tax credits, as opposed to 9%, you know, it's roughly half of what the tax credits would be. But when you are minimizing the rent amounts, a lot of times the numbers didn't work out. And so people just would never use them, or it would sometimes work with historic tax credit deals. In the community in the corridor where we are right now, that's how we were able to finance this was with the 4%. And what's different in addition to that is the 4% tax credits come with a bond allocation. And I'm still learning the bond process, but in short, in addition to the tax credits, is the bonds are issued, which gives an additional funding source. Then the bonds can then be sold and on a public market, and then that money is actually the debt that goes into the property, and it's backed by the federal government. So if you know you as a borrower default, the lender doesn't lose their money. So it makes it attractive for lenders in that space.
Cool.
The 4% on the federal side is a 10-year tax credit. So that means you would get this $460,000 for 10 years. In the state of Wisconsin, the 4% tax credit, which is competitive, is only for 6 years. I mixed those up. Sorry about that. The state is 6, and then the federal is 10. So you're roughly looking at on this project, again, this is potential, about almost $8 million in tax credit equity. Just taking out the, and so now if we do historic tax credits, it's a very similar calculation, but it's a little different in how much you actually receive and how that's calculated. So for the federal, the is 20 for the state is 20% of the QRE, and for the federal is 20% of the QRE. Pricing is probably about the same. I would maybe reduce this a little. I take that back. I got some pretty high pricing for federal, but uh so I'll increase that. So now if we again this is all general. So just take it with a grain of salt. you don't have a basis boost for historic. So the total is going to be the total. Uh, and so if we multiply the 20% times the 71 cent that you would get times what the QRE is, and then you're getting about 1.7 million. And so that's the calculation. So you got about another 2 million or about 4 million uh in state and federal historic. The one thing that you have to also know is that when you combine historic and LIHTC, you cannot, they feel that you're double dipping if you uh if you they feel like you're double dipping if you take both credits. And so there is a structure, it's called a master lease structure without getting too much into the weeds, that allows you to take both credits. If not, you have to subtract. So if not, you subtract the federal tax credit from pricing from the historic from the LIHTC. So you couldn't get you had to subtract the 2.1 from the 3.2. So it will reduce the amount of tax credits you're able to get. But they do have a structure that allows you to get both. So we'll just keep both in there, but be aware of that. All right. So now if we just do a quick sources and uses, and then the last thing we do is like a cash flow analysis. But we do a quick sources and uses. So we know we have the historic tax credit. We got federal and state. And then we have federal and state housing. And sometimes it's not even a such thing as housing tax credit, but sometimes I'll put it in there just so that people don't see low income, because then that could cause pause. Sorry. Let me do this. So in this, you want to just pull from your previous tabs. And the one thing that we don't have on here is debt. Then you have like your AHP sources, you might have home funds, etc. But we're just gonna go with this for now. So we got the federal historic here, state historic, federal. And then because we had to add something in there for debt, so let's see what the difference and can we support it. What's the uses? We'll do. What's the acquisition prices of these, Antoine?
Uh, I haven't gotten a price yet, but I've been talking with the city, and so I haven't gotten that far.
All right, let's put in the dollar, and then we just do hard costs and soft costs.
Reserves. About that. All right, so if we equal these. All right, so to make these even out, we would need about 3 million. Oh, because it's circular. Thing. So it's about a little under $3 million, like 2 million, yeah, to make it even out. So now we want to calculate the debt to see how much debt we can actually afford. And Sierra is still going to join. She was on her way back home and she unfortunately caught a flat tire. And so she's has roadside assistance there now. So if we do year one, just do like a very quick 3 year analysis for cash flow. We have I'm just gonna do a super basic income. We have expenses, have NOI. So we'll put the income in from here, which was here, expenses in here. And then we also want to say, what is our income going to increase? For like LIHTC purposes, it's usually 2% income increase and a 3% expenses increase. And so every year we'll do this for LIHTC, you really gonna have to do it for 15 years. So we just do it just analysis purposes. And so each year you want your income to go up by 2%. So again, if you put the dollar signs in front of it, then it'll keep that formula the entire way. Times 1 plus. And then we'll do same thing for this expenses line. And then all right, so now we calculate the NOI all the way out for 15 years. And so now we need to see how much debt
can we do it? So I'm gonna show you the way I do it now. Because we have AI, you can ask AI with the 1.2 debt coverage ratio and how much income we say we 420 20,000 7 and NOI, how much debt can I, and then they're gonna ask probably interest rate 30 years. So they said let's increase the interest rate to could you do a mostly housing? A six should be pretty good. That should be good. That's pretty good. I just do 6.5 just in case. Uh and 30-year amortization is good. I'll just increase it to 35 years because that's WIDA's terms. All right, so still about the same thing. 4.8 million in debt. I mean that it can absorb. So if we could plug in the difference here to the sources and uses. And just to give you this one trick that I learned from another developer. When you're in Excel, if you go to what if analysis right here, and then go to goal seek. So we want to change this value to the same as the uses, which is 14,731,047 by changing this one. It'll automatically calculate it for you. So you don't have to like go in and try to figure out the number. It'll automatically, and that's under data, then what if analysis, and goal seek. And so in this scenario, again, this was an hour and a half of working on this. But in this scenario, this is a full Proforma, up from baseline from zero of like what this project looks like. Of course, it'll get changed numerous times. We'll go in and say, okay, can we really get these tax credit prices from there? Also, make sure that these assumptions are right for rent. You might say one bedroom is going to be two, this really going to be 850 or, 700, whatever it is. But you can start adjusting these numbers to see if the deal works, uh, as a deal. And the reason I want to do it from scratch is when the performers that you have in these documents that we sent you, you take this information and put it in there, but you know a little bit better on the levers that you're pulling. And when you got like so many different options in those performance, sometimes it's a little harder to understand how all of them relate to each other. But if you have something, relatively simple like this, it's easier to make those changes. And then a lot easier when you're talking about doing like a more extensive performer. And I'll pause there for questions. And I can also save this and put this in a performer as well, in the chat as well. And then people can download, this and kind of work with it as well. No other questions? All right, I need one more before we close out because
Hey, Q, I
yeah,
have
go
a
ahead.
question. It's not specific on the performer that you just did, but I see that a lot of developers of color seem to be in the affordable housing space and the tax credit space. It looks like from some of your comments and your analysis that it's tough to make a profit as a developer, being a small developer, so that so a lot of us try to leverage the tax credits to get profitable deals. Is that true?
Yes, uh, a lot of times we don't have the networks that allow for you to be able to go after those deals, like
Hmm.
initially the market rate deals. But I also think, and we are put into that box,
Hmm.
and so it's kind of like how everybody, uh, a lot of African American artists come out and be rappers, but then they're not really rappers.
Right.
End up being fashion designers or visual artists, all kind of movie stars, actors, but then they have to like enter through that one lane. So I think a lot
Mm.
of people are seeing that as the way to get into the field and then kind of venturing out and finding their way from there.
Okay. Okay. How long have you been on the developer journey yourself?
Since 20, okay, if I say successfully at it since like 2018, but originally 2009 is when I
Okay.
first like put in the offer for a development site and started learning about tax credits and those things was like 2009.
Okay. Wow. Nice. Now you mentioned acre um, in your introduction. What exactly is that?
So it's a course called Associates in Commercial Real Estate, based in here in Milwaukee. And the original intent, and it's still current, is to get more underrepresented groups into the commercial real estate field. And so it's a 6 month training um, program that introduces you to kind of the world and the people that are in the development space. And they have, well, when I went through it, it might be different now, but we had three different modules. One was um, development, the other was property management, and the other was construction. But I think it was still heavily focused on the development side.
Okay. Do you know Brandon Rule? I know he's from that area and also in development.
Yeah, yep. I know Brandon well. He went through maybe 3 years before I did or so,
Hmm.
through that program. And yeah, he was always been good to run ideas off of and just work with, especially like on performers when we were first getting started.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
Glenn, where are you based out of?
I'm in Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been on my development journey a lot shorter than you, like the last 3 or 4 years. And I'm just trying to learn, as much as I can about performance and the industry, doing webinars and seminars and going to different programs and things like that, trying to meet people. And so today has been really valuable for me to connect with this group and see how you build your performer from scratch and some of the tips and tricks and little nuggets of wisdom that you provided us today. So thank you for this. And you're doing this at no cost, so that's great. And it's hard to find good information for free.
No, I appreciate it. We just didn't want to make it a barrier, and we in our other ordeals we teach a lot of students and things, and we try to, well, they always been for free. So we just try to keep that up, and not knocking anybody else's uh, a hustle, but that's just not what we do.
Now, when you say we, your group or company, do you guys have a website or a newsletter or anything like that where I could keep up with what you guys are doing?
Yep, it's youngeastsociety.com.
Okay. Can you throw it in the chat?
Yep,
Thank you.
no problem. No. All right, so I see it is we got a nice group from kind of all over, some Milwaukee, a lot of Milwaukee people, but a lot outside. So next month it'll be warm, so we'll get together in person and we can go from there. If y'all find like $20 million, please send me a text, call, let me know. I'll be more than welcome to accept it. So,
Thanks a lot, Q.
all right, Antoine, thanks for being the guest this this one. So uh
Oh, no problem. No problem. Thank you. I took so many notes. You did really good explaining things and adding perspective. So thank you.
all right, appreciate y'all. I'm gonna get back to these kiddos. Y'all get back and have a safe um summer, but then also a safe Saturday, especially if you're in Milwaukee. Stay off of Fond du Lac.
Thank you, Q.
All right, see y'all later.
Take care.